What's up YouTube? I want to show you a really neat trick to A/B reference your spectrums from a track and the track that you're working in using the free span plugin by Vox&Go. So I don't use this method all the time. As some of you guys who may be following my videos, you know that I generally use a plugin called Curve EQ just because it comes free with Cubase and it is a little bit better for this kind of thing. But that being said, is a lot of you guys are using span and you don't know about this really cool feature which you can kind of use to capture a spectrum to compare to something else. You know, a lot of you guys are relying on, watching and trying to compare rather than using an actual graph. So anyway, let's dive in and have a look at this method. So here I've got the Vox&Go span plugin. This is the free version. There is a pro version which does make this particular thing a little bit easier because you can run several audio channels to just the plugin, etc. That being said, I want to show you a really neat trick to be able to do this with using the free plugin. Let's just have a look quickly what's happening here. Cool, so this is the spectrum of the track that I'm currently working on. It's sounding good to the ear. However, when we want to compare it to, say for example, another track maybe that we've mixed to get it slightly closer to the sound, or if we want to compare it to a professionally mixed track, then it's a little bit difficult to, watch that curve without knowing this little trick that I'm going to show you guys. So what I'm going to do quickly is just load in a track that I'm working on. So the style might be a little bit different, but that being said, you'll still get an idea of how this can kind of work for you guys. So jumping backwards and forwards and referencing like that becomes a little bit of a nightmare if you've got quite a big project and that kind of thing. So just check this out. So here within span, you've got the idea to hold the spectrum. So if we're listening to this particular loop, we can click the hold button and it grabs a snapshot of the spectrum. Now what we can do is, the problem now is if we go and listen here, it doesn't actually overlay these two because it's basically like pause the input of this channel while it's holding this data. However, a really cool thing that Span, the free version of Span, has built in is this underlay setting. So what you can do here is set G2 to underlay an orange spectrum, and now what we're going to have to do is set the routing so that G2 is grabbing information from the stereo track. So let's just go like this, and now if we press space, so this is so handy because now I can quickly tell the mix that I'm currently working on is maybe a little bit lacking in the mid-range. The low end is maybe a little bit too boosted. So we can quickly make these judgments based on referencing and not having to, watch these graphs as they change. You can compare them very easily. Check this out. So for some reason, once we start trying to add more layers than just the two, it doesn't seem to work. So this just must be a really tricky, a weird kind of method that wasn't intended to be used with the free version of Span. That being said, it's still incredibly handy for these quick check situations where you just want to quickly check, like, how is the reference, how is the frequency spectrum of my entire mix? That being said, Vox&Go's Curve EQ is definitely worth purchasing specifically for this reason. It's not actually designed for this either. It's actually designed to take a curve of a frequency spectrum and then match a source to that frequency using an EQ. But just the visual aspect of this plugin alone, where you can kind of like grab a snapshot of the track, save it as a preset, have multiple different presets for different styles and different genres, is incredibly helpful. So here what we can do is we can grab a quick match of the reference track by clicking static and match, and then we click take over here. The cool thing about Curve EQ is you've got 4 slots, so I like to grab a couple of each one just to get more of an average of how the track looks at not just one part, if you know what I mean. Maybe have a part with just the kick and bass and a part which is like the full mix. So then let's jump back to the current mix that we're working on. So using this technique, we can quickly check what sort of adjustments we need to make in the mix so that we can get it to fit nicely within a frequency spectrum of something that we know is a good mix. So bear in mind these adjustments here that I did on the equalizer are just on the stereo output. I would definitely go back into the individual channels and change the balance there, like boost some of the subs on the kick and the bass, boost some of the mids on the synths and that kind of thing, because as you can see here, like as I'm boosting this, some of that like percussion is coming through, which I might not want. You got much more control if you go back into the individual channels and do that. That being said, let's quickly A/B test the difference that this quick EQ settings that we've done to the master output has done to the overall tone of the track. Clarity just comes through so much nicer because I didn't realize when I was first producing the track that I had such an extensive like boost in the lower mid range, and that often muddies up the entire area. So just reducing that a little bit after referencing it to something that I know is a decent mix, it helps so much with the production process. So anyway, that's about it for today, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know what you think in the comments if you want more of this like quick fire simple tricks for stuff that I do. Also let me know in the comments. As always, if you haven't yet, consider hitting that subscribe button, and see you guys next time. Cheers.